This is paradise. That's a bold statement. Sitting here in anticipation, watching the clock, counting down the final hours before the diploma is in hand and the burden is lifted. What is paradise? Maybe you think of a tropical vacation, drink in hand, a fancy resort. Maybe starting your dream job and making the big bucks is paradise. Or maybe it's just being free from the grasp of academia and celebrating the end of your schooling, at least for now. Paradise is defined as a state of bliss and delight. I love school as much as the next person, but I'm not sure I'd go quite so far as to describe it as a state of bliss. I mean, the most defining part of our academic experience was the lack of a normal one. Freshman year was filled with excitement, freedom, and adventure. We found clubs to participate in, groups of friends, new crushes to help us forget about our high school romances, and campus celebrities that we'd hyperfixate on for the next 4 years. It was paradise, at least for a while. I was one of those who was happily embracing that sunny day in March 2020, thinking, it's no big deal. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Didn't pack a thing. I imagined nothing could go wrong. Spent mornings on Zoom and afternoons judging my sister for making whipped coffee. But I think after a certain amount of time, when the birthday drive-bys and family walks around the neighborhood lost their magic, the hopefulness and the optimism wore down. We never did go back to school freshman year. Instead, we sat in our childhood bedrooms trying to learn when we should have been out in a new world. We ordered masks with pretty patterns as we watched people die from an illness we couldn't seem to control. We baked banana bread as people were taken from the world by injustices and excuses. We picked up new hobbies as an outlet for our boredom and frustration when we should have been defining ourselves in the context of adulthood. As we returned to campus in August, relieved to see the friends we really just met but now have an everlasting bond with, things felt different. It wasn't just that the dining hall no longer used ceramic plates and silverware, and the portable chairs and cozies were certainly a plus. But no, it was that life had changed as we knew it. Our transition into the real world was stunted. The innocence and sense of adventure were gone too soon, replaced with apprehension and confusion, and we had to find our footing as college students once again. That was not my strongest ability. The curriculum was beginning to accelerate, and I viewed lectures from Zoom as I watched people burn out of the workforce that I've prepared to enter. I felt as though I was living in a panic, watching life pass me by. I didn't understand. I couldn't turn off the stress. It wasn't paradise, it was torture. One day at clinical, I stood there amidst the chaos of the hospital, thinking I chose the wrong path. And I told myself that when I got back to campus, I would come up with a plan. Change my major, maybe even transfer schools. But this plan was never again considered because of the patient I had that day. It's up for debate whether I truly don't remember every detail or if I'm just refraining from violating HIPAA before I even get my license. Whatever the case may be, I will never forget her. She was quiet, clearly anxious, and terribly frightened. Her diet was just advanced, meaning she could have liquids after having nothing to eat by mouth for a week. Timidly, afraid to eat for the first time alone, she asked if I would stay with her. Such a simple task. Relieved that I knew how to do something, and eager to look busy so my instructor wouldn't scold me, I was more than willing. I opened a cup of the apple juice that was on her tray, and I held it out for her. She carefully scooped some onto a spoon and brought it to her lips. After a couple sips, she paused and placed her hand on my arm. Leaning towards me, she said, "I know you don't understand, but this is paradise." I stood in shock and tears filled my eyes. Those words changed my entire perspective. No longer was she living in fear and stress. She was proud of her progress and hopeful for what would come next. That is paradise. From the greatest to simplest of moments, perhaps we all experienced illustrations of paradise during our time here. Every day, there are moments that make it all worth it. We learned so much in the classroom, but we learned so much more from those around us. When things seem to be going so wrong, when we don't understand, we turn to others to help us find the light. We hold out our hands and offer what we can, just as others would do for us. Villanova has taught us the most important lesson of all: people matter the most. We always heard the words veritas, unitas, and caritas. The past 4 years have taught us that veritas is truth. It's writing letters about our trials and triumphs and submitting them to If You're Reading This so that we're no longer afraid. It's knowing and trusting who you are, recognizing when something isn't right, and using your voice to ignite change. Unitas is unity. It's tying green bandanas on our backpacks to stand with each other and show support wherever we turn. It's being part of a team. It's sitting at a table big enough to eat with everyone and showing each person that they belong. Caritas is love. It's praising people for who they are through Meant for Big Things. It's getting a fist bump from Oscar in the dining hall. It's granting people understanding and care. It's loving as you have been loved. As our time at Villanova comes to an end, may we never cease to remember the lessons we've learned. Let us conclude our undergraduate career and look forward, head held high, and remember who we are, where we've been, and where we are going. In the times when we don't understand, may we have the grace and strength to stop, see the goodness around us, and recognize that this is paradise.